Focus. Ideate. Innovate. Enable.
On behalf of Yes Bank and Mr. Rana Kapoor, I would like to extend a warm welcome to our esteemed guests present here today for the Bangalore chapter of Yes Bank National CFO Forum. The forum brings together super achievers, CFOs, and provides a knowledge-sharing platform to the financial leadership of India and to the industry at large. I'm happy to share that the forum also has a dedicated website and a LinkedIn page to provide a networking platform for India's financial leaders. I once again welcome everyone and would like to request our chief guest, Sri Manivanan, to deliver the keynote address. Thank you all.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In your company, if a decision goes wrong, so maximum what happens? If a decision of the CFO or the CEO or the COO goes wrong, so who absorbs the risk? Maximum you will be given a pink slip, maximum. But in the government, this risk absorption is not at all there. We use the public fund. If tomorrow I take a decision to buy something which doesn't work, or invest in a software program that doesn't give result, then they are going to tell me that you purposefully did this to help somebody. When you have a chance, please tell the people or the lawmakers, tell them that you should bring in a risk absorption system in the decision making of the government. Apart from the risk issue, there is one more issue which affects the functioning of the government. That is that we do not have a fixed goal. Our goals keep on shifting every day. This second point is much more streamlined in abroad. If you go to any Western countries or even Singapore, the goal, what you have to do in a particular year, is fixed and they don't keep changing it. In India, where you have the jugaad culture, we're very fond of changing things at the drop of a hat. You want to change the priorities. So this is also required. You have to give priorities very clear, then only people will be able to perform. Thank you very much and have a nice evening.
Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming on stage Mr. Krishna Kumar Natarajan, the Executive Chairman at Mindtree. Also our moderator for this evening, I would like to invite Arun Giri, Group Editor at Tax Sutra.
So welcome everyone to this Yes Bank National CFO Forum in association with NASSCOM and CNBC TV18. It's a pleasure to be moderating this discussion with Mr. Natarajan, an eminent personality in the IT world. So let's talk about disruption, which is the theme for this fireside conversation. You could categorize disruptions into maybe 3 or 4 main parts, which we can discuss now. One is technological, political, regulatory, policy. Let's look at a political disruption, geopolitical, something like a Brexit. The moment you heard that the Brexit vote had gone in favor of the leave, what was your first instinct?
I think the CFO needs to play a very anticipatory role. What typically a company looks at from the context of risk management is what happens to our customers and clients when a black swan event happens. But I think the CFO needs to be far more proactive in thinking what are the implications it's going to have on the financial health of the stakeholders. What is the impact it's going to have on currency? Because in a business like ours, which is very dependent in terms of currencies and what is the anticipated movements of those, I think the CFO needs to build a point of view and be proactive. What happens if a black swan event happens?
So let's talk about policy disruptions. Something like a GST. You have a bill which has been discussed for the last 6-7 years quite seriously. Suddenly, all of a sudden, when not many gave it a chance, it's passed Rajya Sabha. How do you prepare for that? What do you expect from a CFO?
See, I must tell you, I think we need to start acknowledging changes are going to be a reality of life, and changes no more are going to give you the luxury of time to prepare for the change.
So change is the new normal.
So change is really the new norm. And to do it with the rapidity, which is why it's not just the question of an organizational agility, but how does each function really prepare to be more agile and more real-time?
But sir, some can be positive policy disruptions, like say a Digital India initiative,
Yes.
where you all come in, NASSCOM comes in, where Mindtree comes in, all of you all come in a big way. So that's positive policy disruption.
No, a lot of that will lead to what I think expansion of demand. I think a lot of these changes, be it technology disruptions or things which are impacted by the policy, also create a sense of opportunity. So in a way, I think the mindset typically what has been talked about of CFOs being bean counters and more the people who are risk averse, I think that mindset needs to change from being very risk aversive to saying, in this role, I have to be balanced in terms of risk which the company takes.
What will it take in this era of disruption for the CFO to make that transition to CEO?
I think all of you must have absolute clarity on the strategy of the company, and you must be able to make or share that strategy of the company in very pithy words. I normally push people to define strategy in 25 words. So all of you should get ready for that. So start practicing that ability to explain your business in crisp words to an external stakeholder, and slowly you'll start picking up all the elements required to succeed in the business.
It's a pleasure talking to you, Mr. Mathur. Pleasure.
Let me start with tax. It's sort of first on the list of the topics and something that's close to my heart. We've all been hearing about the ease of doing business, and, the tax reforms is now the new phrase. We don't hear the word tax terrorism as often. And I think the general view is that at least at the policy level, the government is doing a lot to ease things. They're not appealing certain court cases. Where possible, they're coming out with clarity, etc. But I think there's still not enough consensus on what's really happening on the ground. So maybe if I can start with you and just get your perspective. I mean, you lead a large corporation, both with massive operations in India and globally. What's your perception of this aspect, Arvind?
I think you summed it right. I think at a policy level, we do see directionally people wanting to go towards easing the tax. But I think the challenge continues to be in terms of the tax administration. And I think Mr. Manivannan kind of talked about it. There is still a lot of hesitancy to take decisions. And therefore, in India, for all practical purposes, the judiciary is the ultimate decision maker for any dispute. And to that extent, till that kind of changes, we will continue to see a situation where the intent doesn't get fully percolated down to action.
Sure. So maybe Jairaj, if I can come to you, would you agree with that? Would you say that there's no change at all at the ground level, or do you think we're seeing some shoots and hopefully it is a matter of time?
See, there was a time when we were telling that earlier government, kuch to karo. Now we are telling this government, aur kuch karo, bahut kuch karo, bahut kuch karo. I think as a nation, we are too intolerant towards people who perform. The kind of steps the government has taken is, I think, more than enough. I think we are expecting too much. It always happens in an organization. You always expect more from a guy who performs. I don't agree that the steps taken are not enough. They are more than enough. Only thing that we are not seeing the results on the ground. I'm sure the shoots will start showing up in the years to come.
Just taking a cue from what you said, Jairaj, or kuch karo. Maybe if I can ask you, Jagan, again, as somebody who runs a global company, that is this a case of trying to achieve too much? I mean, we all heard that even in terms of on the ground, we haven't seen enough change. The attitude of the field officers is still something that leaves a lot to be desired. So are we trying to get our priorities wrong by trying to just introduce more and more taxes even before we've settled down on what we already have?
On a lighter note, this is what we were all asking for. As he mentioned in many forums 2-3 years back, so if there is no clarity on a particular thing, when the poem is not a new one, it's an international requirement now. So OECD efforts, the government is actively participating in OECD forum, putting across India's stand and coming up with the international tax guidance. when they did not follow the OECD guidelines, we all said, no, this is a different policy. On many cases have been fought using the OECD guideline. Even this Vodafone case, they have referred on indirect transfer, there is no clarity and all those things. Now they are trying to clarify that. In the mood, the changes happening across the globe, you need so many regulations, so many clarifications, so many guidelines, so many rules. This is part and parcel of life now. You cannot shy away from it. Maybe it will stabilize a little bit later. I think the direction taken in the tax regulation particularly is in the right spirit and in the right direction.
Thanks, Jagan. Avinash, if we can shift gears, there's also a perception that the government doesn't fully understand the new age business models and tries to keep coming up with sort of taxes to what I would call catch them, right? So we had the aggregator issues, we had several other examples where newer business models were introduced and then the government tried to come up with a tax to sort of go after them. And again, perhaps equalization levy is an example of that. Do you feel that, since you're running a company in a sense which is representing a newer kind of business model, do you feel that pressure that the tax authorities are always on the lookout, or do you think again that has passed?
Especially in our business, when we have to cross, the goods needs to cross from one state to another state, there have been lots of issues in terms of compliance, in terms of where to pay taxes. So that is, I think, another it's basically competitive pressure from from both the states, basically, rather than actually following what is there in the law. We keep on saying that there is no clarity, but there are certain places where it's clear-cut clarity that who needs to get the tax. For example, if I am sending goods from Karnataka to Kerala, for example. So there is complete clarity in the law, but somehow both the states want to get the tax and they don't want to understand that what is legally right.
Thanks. Prabhakar, moving to you, do you think some of the aspects that Avinash highlighted will actually get resolved by GST?
So in terms of how GST would apply, I think there's not much clarity at this stage. But I would just like to fine-tune Avinash's answer, right? I think in the interest of the state's revenue protection, I think a lot of these local rules are being made. How that affects the business is the strategy changes, right? The aggregator rule of Karnataka, for example, had changed the warehousing strategies for a lot of these e-commerce companies. I think when GST comes into picture, there will be some easing of those aspects.
Pankaj, coming to you, slogans like Make in India, Startup India, representing ABB, which is in that sense a lot to do with manufacturing. Do you think there's enough being done on the tax side to really encourage or even facilitate manufacturing?
I sense the way things are moving, the way GST, I think a lot of things yet to kind of come out in clear black and white. But the way things are going to move out in terms of GST space, this is only going to make things really organized in one sense and make it more business friendly. Eventually, I'm sure that we are looking at a really different way of working.
Let's move on from tax to maybe some regulatory and policy issues. And maybe if I can start with capital markets and start with you, Jairaj. You all did a very, very successful listing about a year back. But I think there's been a general perception, and perhaps there's reality as well, that there's not enough breadth and depth in the Indian capital market. What, according to you, is holding us back from seeing more and more successful offerings?
I think today's capital market in India is pretty robust. To me, the role of SEBI is so good, they've been performing so well. And in the context of Indian companies, the best that we could expect from a regulator is already there.
Avinash, would you want to share a perspective?
The capital flows have really eased, I would say, because that is what is really making the FII flows a lot more robust. You may have one or two corrections which the government is making, like, they have rolled back certain treaties. But that's again, which is something which is a very common thing all across the globe. Because wherever tax efficiencies are not really reaped by the government, they would definitely make these corrections.
Moving on to maybe M&A activity, and perhaps, Jagan, we can start with you. Again, the sense that we all carry is that there isn't enough M&A activity happening, both domestic as well as cross-border.
It has to come along with the opportunities. So outbound M&A, we have many companies have acquired in various European region and a few in American zone. But now the business needs a stability and to grow. Suddenly we have realized that the localized problems in that country and the regulation in those countries are not that friendly. Many businesses are saying there is a big opportunity in India. So M&A activities are happening within India in various industries. So outbound M&A may take some more time to stabilize and come back on that.
Arvind, there's someone managing Wipro's cash. Your perspective on M&A?
So we've been quite aggressive on M&A. We've spent about 600 million last year on outbound M&A. I think the way we are looking at our business, and business drives a lot of that decision, is that technology is increasingly becoming an ecosystem play. And therefore it is going to be important to have M&A as a very, very viable strategy. So I think Jagan mentioned some of those in terms of either approach new markets through M&A or approach specific technology skill sets. And a lot of the disruptions that's happening in India or in the Silicon Valley for that matter from a technology perspective, sometimes we use ventures as a means to get a sneak peek into what's happening in future. So clearly, M&A is top priority. I think reasonable amount of cash is going to be kept.
We'll move to the sort of third limb of our discussion, which is completely different from tax and regulations, which is digital disruption. Maybe if I can start with you, Jairaj, and my turn for a little bit of a commercial, which is, in a survey conducted by PwC Global, it was found that 1 in 3 companies in India was spending about 15% of their revenues on digital enterprise and transformation. But that's still only half of the global average of about 31%. So as a CFO, does digital figure in your top 3 priorities?
The data you spoke about, maybe a past data, maybe 15% or 31% is very low. But as you go by, you will see a bigger share of investment coming in that aspect. But as a CFO, my priority will be digital, digital, digital. All 3 priorities will be only digital. But that is where I see a lot of things happening, a lot of value being added, a lot of operational efficiency being created, and a customer satisfaction coming to that. Take the case of SMAC that you are always referring to that. Social media will help you in getting the customer feedbacks. Mobility is making life so easy that every application that any software developer creates, it's always mobility first. Analytics, today we are in a stage where we can't live without analytics. Anybody who is not analytical oriented will definitely lose out in the market.
Ganesh, do you share that list?
I will give a different perspective to this. I think till maybe about a decade back, I think technology was always considered an enabler. I think today it is not an enabler, it is a business driver. And why do I say this? Because I will just quickly mention 2 dimensions. One is internal to the company and how exactly you network with your stakeholders. The speed with which you are able to actually drive your systems and processes with controls and compliance. I think that can come only through digital interfaces.
Well said, sir. And on that note, gentlemen, thank you so much for being part of this lovely panel. And thank you all of you for being a patient audience.
I would once again like to request Mr. R. Ravichander, our Group President and Regional Director South, to speak on the journey of the CFO Forum and also present the Transformational CFO Award to financial leaders who have successfully transitioned from traditional to new age sectors.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Yes Bank, and before I go and thank you all on behalf of Yes Bank, I just want to give you a very small progress report card on the bank itself. As many of you know, we are a new generation private sector bank. We started in the year of 2004, and as we speak today, 12 years down the line, I'm happy to report to you that we are the 5th largest private sector bank in the whole country. the forum would like to honor financial leaders who have successfully led organizations in traditional and new age sectors. These visionary financial leaders have successfully transitioned from traditional industries to startups while navigating through newer challenges. I sincerely congratulate them for their success and wish them all the best in their future endeavors. Thank you very much.
We've got 3 award winners for this evening. The very first one being Mr. Shrikant Rajashankar. Can we please have him on stage? The man himself, the Chief Finance Officer at Bluestone. It's an honor for us to present the Transformational CFO Award to you. Our second award winner for this evening, you've already had a glimpse of him before, Mr. Avinash Shekhar, CFO, Urban Ladder. Congratulations, sir. And our third awardee for this evening, again, you've seen him on stage before, Mr. Prabhakar Sundar, the Chief Financial Officer at Bunic Technologies Private Limited.
Focus, ideate, innovate, enable.